Welcome to Synerise Smart Sessions. Today we will talk about foundation models in artificial intelligence. What makes them so crucial for data science team? How they evolved? And what value they bring for the business? I'm with Jacek Dąbrowski, Chief AI Officer of Synerise, and Marcin Słomka, Business Architect from Microsoft. Foundation models are probably the most important element of AI architecture, yet not very well known to the public. GPT is known for text. DALL-E is a foundation model for images. Synerise in New York in January 2023 introduced Monad, the foundation model for behavioral data. Jacek, could you describe Monad and what was the original idea of it?
Right. To give a little bit of a historical background, what are foundation models? These are usually very large models trained on a lot of data in a self-supervised way. What does that mean? That means that they are trained without any specific objective, a business context in mind. They are trained on the data to understand it, to learn good representations of inputs, and to compress the data set in a meaningful way. So, for example, Google BERT, GPT-3 and similar models are trained on vast troves of text data. And their task is very simple. They just learn to predict the next token. So a token is like a subword, a little piece of a word. And thanks to this very simple self-supervised objective, they tend to learn a lot about the language itself, a lot about the world from the texts, and they exhibit remarkable properties, like, for example, being able to generate poems or being able to understand jokes, irony, etc., which was quite unexpected. And the same case is for image models. The larger the data set, the better the performance. Nowadays, we have a large outflow of generative AI models. People play around with them. There have been some open source ones like Stable Diffusion, and everyone can suddenly generate very nice and sometimes funny, sometimes useful images of various scenes, right? Mm-hmm. So a foundation model is a major game changer for AI. There are companies like Hugging Face, which primarily catalog and help people use foundation models, which are pre-trained. Mm-hmm. And the job of a data scientist who previously had a very different task, because in the past, if you wanted, for example, to develop a solution for sentiment classification, for, let's say, tweets on Twitter, or you wanted to extract named entities from text, you would usually build a custom model with handcrafted features, with a dedicated architecture, with some injected expert knowledge, and that would take a lot of work. Nowadays, once you have a foundation model, you can just fine-tune it for a specific task, and it usually outperforms the best baselines possible, right? So Monad is somewhat similar to those huge models. The main difference is that, first of all, it's a private foundation model, which means that it's trained exclusively on the data of the customer. And the second difference is that it doesn't handle just texts or images, but it handles behavioral data. So data generated by customers, by other possible human interactions, like employees, call center employees, for example, or data generated by possibly anonymized entities like credit cards, cookies, etc., etc. So the idea of Monad is has a long history. When we started Synerise AI around 5 years ago, we had a very difficult task in front of us. To be able to handle a lot of different customers from various business sectors like banking, telco, e-commerce, offline retail, fashion, etc., etc., in a unified way with a very small team. When we started back then, we had just 7 people on board in the AI department, but the customers were very diverse, right? So developing customized solutions and manually engineering features for every sector, every use case was just impossible, right? We had to think about something different, something more general, something which would allow us to scale. And that's when we started thinking about creating more of a foundation model, which would be a common denominator for human behaviors, trained on the entirety of data available in a data warehouse.
All right, excellent. So we have the background. We have the foundation of the foundation model. Now let me ask Marcin. In 2017, Jacek referred to this date. Satya Nadella in Warsaw, he was actually playing with Synerise platform. He stressed then the artificial intelligence we apply to the data, to heterogeneous data, and how we transfer this into the actions, in the real-time actions. 5 years, almost 6 years has passed. How the world of analytical systems, how the world of artificial intelligence has changed since then?
Sure, I will follow the question. I will answer the question by following the investment path of the Microsoft in the AI space. And the first area is definitely the technology and the research. We have like 8 global research centers in the world with over 1,000 specialists on board. We were the first company to deliver the cognitive models that were on par with the cognitive capabilities of the human being in the space of in the domain of the voice and text analysis. And the second area that we invest very much is the partnership. Jacek has mentioned the Hugging Face, so we are in strict cooperation with Hugging Face. One can use the foundation models within the Azure as an endpoint. We are cooperating with the Meta, so we are delivering them the computational power for building the foundational models for language and computer vision they build. And we are also a customers of NVIDIA, our biggest models in Microsoft, like Turing, which is, by the way, 3 times bigger in terms of the training parameters that ChatGPT DaVinci has been built on top of the Nemo Megatron infrastructure of NVIDIA. And obviously the last thing and the most spectacular in terms of the recent news announcement is of course our cooperation with the OpenAI. And we not only deliver the computational power for them, but also make the fruits of their work available within the Azure. So now we have in the general availability the OpenAI services within Azure. So you can now play with the language models Jacek has mentioned before, but let me just stress one thing, that it's not only about the human language. There is also a very nice part that is called Codex, which has been trained on top of the programming languages. So now you can, using, for example, a GitHub or our DevOps solutions, you can kind of complete the whole procedures within the code using this Codex feature.
Okay, so from what you just said, I can conclude, and then tell me if I'm right, that the work of data scientists now is more like a work of software developer than the science.
Yeah, it's getting closer and closer to that. And let me just maybe make a step back and then comment on how the analytical ecosystem looks in many companies. So basically, a lot of them have got a very well-established AI infrastructure, from tool set, skill set, and for the processes. The only problem is that they have optimized for the producing a vast number of batch models. And now reality has changed. We have real time, and real time is everything at the moment. So in order to adapt, they have to move to the cloud. And then there are a lot of plausible arguments behind such a move, because calling to life of provisioning the resources for the AI lab in the cloud is like a snap of my fingers. On top of that, you can deliver a set of basic services like algorithms for regression, classification, outlier analysis, everything is there. And obviously, as you have mentioned, because right now we have to produce it in a, let's say, real-time mode and for the production, we have to follow the best practices from the computer programming space. That's why we have this MLOps, which is very close to the DevOps that we all know very, very well. And the last thing is probably or somehow related to Jacek has mentioned before. What I can see is that before it was like when data scientist was facing the problem of building another model, he was usually building it from the scratch. But right now with this, horn of abundance of various models that are available from the market, the foundation ones, he can just switch his mindset and think about and rather look for the ready-to-use models that are already from the market. And as I understand, there are plenty, and I know there are plenty of models that cover modalities like a voice or vision or text, but the lacking element of a chain is a model that will cover the behavioral data. This is my understanding.
For the last 2 years, Synerise AI team competed head-to-head, like equal, with Google DeepMind, with Baidu, with NVIDIA, and I must say, always on the podium. How do you see the future of Monad in the context what just Marcin said about the evolution of AI?
Right. So Monad is in a pretty unique sweet spot, I would say, because what was the origin of the huge foundation models we've heard of today? Text data is extremely abundant, right? It's all over the internet. Mm-hmm. Images are all over the internet. Probably the next modality that's going to be solved are videos, right? So this was natural, a natural process of evolution because scientists focused on the areas where the data was, right? Synerise is in a very unique position of having access to a lot of customer data from very diverse business sectors, right? So this allows us to design Monad as a very universal tool for foundation modeling of behavioral data. And thinking about the future, you have to understand the current landscape that enterprises are facing. Usually, a typical enterprise has more than a dozen different data sources, a need for potentially thousands of machine learning models, but they have a small team which has to include data engineers, data scientists, machine learning engineers, potentially some other roles as well. If you add MLOps people to that, that becomes a huge organization. The data sources they have evolve, they change, they start to capture new data. So this is a very dynamic landscape that requires maintenance, requires constant improvements, changes, and usually it is the case that a data science department is able to handle only a small part of business requirements that the higher-ups would love to have taken care of. Mm-hmm. So here comes Monad into the picture, where a single huge foundation model trained on the entirety of behavioral data can supercharge even a small data science team to develop potentially thousands of models of very high quality in a very short time without the need for constant maintenance, because Monad handles all of that. Okay. The feature engineering, the updates, the evolution part, this is covered. What the data science team has to focus on is just applications. And this is the way that I believe the future is going to look like, whether for behavioral data or for text data or for other kinds of data, because there's just not enough experts to build an in-house super powerful model from scratch in every company.
Okay, clear. So in 2 words, complexity to simplicity.
Exactly.
A lot of things boil down to very simple user-friendly application of the models that could be handled by small, agile team in practically any organization. So back from future to the present. In few words, just for me as the university graduate, please describe how Monad works.
Okay. Monad is based on a research that we've conducted over the last few years. It spans from graph machine learning and hypergraph embeddings through different kinds of neural architectures and differential geometry. Those are probably not the right words for general university level.
Thank you for not using Riemannian geometry term.
Right. But very simply speaking, imagine your behavioral history is a large enriched bank statement, which lists all your historical behaviors, like money transfers, credit card purchases, online behaviors, mobile app usage, etc., etc., call center activity, whatever events you've generated. Now, Monad takes all of your past behaviors and represents them in a very efficient data structure, which is fed into a neural network. This efficient data structure is based on our proprietary algorithms, but it basically allows us to reconstruct your behaviors pretty accurately from this single vector. Okay. Now, the neural network is tasked with predicting your future behaviors based on your past behaviors. And that happens for all the customers within a customer's ecosystem. So you could say that Monad is predicting a full spectrum of future behaviors, obviously those which can be observed in the customer's data, based on the customer's history. And once you have such a model, it can be very easily fine-tuned to answer many questions.
Okay, clear. I was simple. Thank you very much. Okay, let's stay in the technical area. Marcin, how would you, from your perspective, from Microsoft perspective, position Monad versus Azure ML Studio?
So basically, Azure ML is the foundation for all the activities that are done within the, let's say, competencies of the AI team. And on top of that, we are planting various cognitive services that are derived from the pre-trained huge models. And obviously, we have many of them already in use on the Azure. And the most noble ones are, of course, the ones coming from the OpenAI GPT-3 or Codex mentioned before, but we also have a Turing, which is a huge language model. We have a CodeZ, which is a translational service. We do have a computer vision service, which is called Florence. So there are many of them. We also add, on top of it, we also add some specialized services like a form recognizer that is typically used for analyzing the documents and extracting all the data that is needed. There are plenty of them, and basically they are covering all the modalities related to voice, text, and vision. As I said before, the problem is that there is a gap in the spectra. We still need a good solution for building a universal representation about the customer behavior. And here, when I see the Monad as a filling part of the whole spectra, and to some extent, I think of it as that ChatGPT is this thing to the language as a Monad to the behavioral data. So
very
this
well
is said. And it fulfills the whole spectra.
Here, I would like to add one thing. Monad is currently able to be deployed on Azure fully. It's in the form of a Docker image. And the language of Monad is PyTorch, which is supported fully by Azure ML. Also, the user interface for Monad are Jupyter notebooks, which are also natively supported by Azure ML. So the whole lifecycle of Monad can be handled from within Azure ML. It's like Azure ML can handle the MLOps parts, the model management part, the scalability part, while Monad handles the understanding of behavioral data.
Yes, absolutely. There's a full integration. The only difference between what we deliver in the Azure and what is delivered by Monad is that Monad is a kind of a private foundation model, so it needs to be trained on specifically on the customer data. And this opens the whole spectrum of opportunities for the data science team, because it can boost the already used model, or it can open completely new opportunities for the model that has never been built within this data science team. What I really like about the promise of Monad is the fact that you don't have to be a domain expert to prepare and to craft the features. It was the most mundane and most difficult part in every machine learning task. And right now it seems like you have a very good patent for that, to somehow load off this burden from the data scientist back.
All right, so 3 things. We fit nicely into Azure ML Studio. We complement it. Through this, we are available to basically the whole world, to the companies large and small. And then the third one is the private foundation model. So we can operate on the data that is related and owned by a single company, which is super important now, where the data privacy takes the stage of probably the most important subject now across the whole globe, from US through EU. So those 3 elements are worth to remember. So we talk about origins of foundation models. We talk about evolution of foundation models. We talk about some technical aspect of foundation models. We talk about origin of Monad. Let's talk about what value Monad brings to business, because with the great power comes also great responsibility, mostly responsibility for P&L, for profit and loss. So Jacek, could you give our viewers the feeling what benefits to business Monad can offer?
Right, okay. So first of all, the deployment of Monad is super fast. We just need to connect the data sources, configure where the customer data is, and Monad goes on an autopilot to train itself. So this is hands-off. Subsequently, once a foundation model is ready, supervised models can be fine-tuned. Such a supervised model trains a lot faster than a standard model and usually achieves a significantly better performance. In cases where labeled data is required, for example, if a company would like to extrapolate some survey data, which might be limited in scope, to their general population of customers, Monad reduces the number of data points required by more than 3 times. So, a very short life cycle of deploying Monad, below 5 days usually, and then extremely fast model training iteration. So this brings us to the key advantage of Monad. Instead of maintaining a very, very large population of data engineers, data scientists, machine learning engineers, and the need to constantly scale that department to meet business requirements of more and more advanced and more comprehensive machine learning applications, you can run all of this with a small team, with Monad, without the need for all this boring manual work. You just focus on ideas and quick verification. You can fail fast, you can win quickly as well. So this is the core value of Monad for business.
Okay, so efficiency, power, efficiency on data, so using much less data to produce meaningful algorithms, and at the end of the day, also the metrics, which are typically much better than the baseline metrics. But we know from the market that the data science teams are very expensive to keep. Data scientists are expensive to attract and also expensive to keep. So not every company, even large, can afford or can have the data science teams. And then I'd like to ask Marcin, because Microsoft is known for extensive partner network. You have the partners all over the world, the partners that are from the smallest to the largest companies in the IT business. How the leading IT companies like Accenture, McKinsey, PwC can use Monad to include in their business offers?
You know, the company you have mentioned are regularly working in the advisory space, so they are, producing a lot of business hypotheses, and, by building the huge pipeline of the hypotheses, you need a tool that will quickly verify whether they make sense or not, and by that you are kind of irrespective whether it will be confirmed or failed, because fail fast is also a value for a company. So I would say that it's a very good gating mechanism for selecting the right ideas and dropping the bad ones. And the second thing, and I used to run a huge data science team at the customer side, and stepping into my old shoes, I would say that I would love to have a general representation of the customer as a product delivered by a company like that, or done internally. It depends on the, let's say, some nuances within the company. But basically, it's a product of a great value, and I would love to have something like that to check it against what I have and maybe find a new potential as well.
So prototyping and the Monad as a consulting service for the customers that have not powerful to have the own data science.
Configured Monad as a final product to be delivered to the data science team.
Excellent. Right. We need to wrap up. So, as you remember, in 2022, in December, ChatGPT came up as the some kind of a revelation. Suddenly, everyone was an AI expert using this service. What, in your opinion, 2023 will bring in the area of artificial intelligence?
I will not speculate on the future, but I definitely would love to see much more attention paid on the let's say modeling of the decisions, because we are right now in the business of modeling the future. So basically we answer the question what will happen, but I see a lot of industries where what will happen is important, but what optimal decision to take is even more important. And unfortunately the whole part related to reinforcement learning or operational research is not at the spotlight at the moment. I hope that it will come back and gain its part of the share.
Jacek?
Yeah, we're also driving a little bit of research in Monad in this direction, so I'm happy that Marcin believes it's important. My prediction for the coming year is very simple. I think the next domains where there is a lot of data will be tackled, so primarily video content, possibly also generated content like for metaverse, gaming, stuff like this involving 3D graphics.
Video, metaverse, new world.
Yeah, we should see the analog of DALL-E, Stable Diffusion for 3D video content.
Exciting times. So what GPT is for text, Monad is for behavioral data. Stay tuned for the success stories of our customers coming in 2023 based on Monad. Thank you very much for your visit. Thank you very much for sharing with us this enormous news and the fantastic stories of foundation models in AI.